Hey guys, my name is Tim. I'm the creative director at Melt Marketing. Today, I'm going to be making a tutorial on how I created the Jazz Hop branding that you can see on the screen. It was a personal project that I did in my spare time. I'll be creating more videos like this in the future, so feel free to follow us on our social medias, subscribe to our YouTube, or even go take a look at our blog posts. Okay, so let's get started with the logo. For this logo, I have chosen to use the Epitaph typeface. You can find a link to a free version of the typeface in the description below. I'd just like to point out here where I do the O and the P. I use lowercase because I thought it looked better than the capital O and P. But feel free to play around and see what you like the best. Now that we're happy with the way that it looks, we can move on to the next step. I'm just going to scale this up quickly so it's nice and easy to work with. There are lots of ways that you can scale your graphic. I just press E on my keyboard and scale it from the corner to scale it uniformly. Next, we're going to turn our text into an object by going Object and Expand. It is now a path that we can edit. Now I'll show you guys a nice trick that I learned a while back. So you'll take your object and add a stroke to it. The purpose of this trick is to allow you to edit complex shapes and make them either thinner or thicker. Adjust the stroke until you're happy with it, and then you can go Object and Expand again. The next step in this process is to ungroup everything and then select each individual letter with their outline. So what you're going to do is use the Pathfinder, and there you go, you have thinner shapes. So keep repeating this process until you've finished every single letter, and then we can move on to the next step. Oh, I just remembered, when I created the logo the first time around, I used the Pathfinder here to make the end product of the P look better. Cool, so once you're happy with that, we can go and group everything and use the offset path tool. Here you can choose any size you want. I went with 0.4 millimeters. Keeping the offset selected, we can change the colors with ease. Notice that it keeps the offset selected, so I suggest you keep them selected when changing the colors, otherwise you'll have to reselect every letter. I'll just repeat that process, so go offset path, do your selection, and then you can change the color. Now I'm just going to zoom in quickly here. I know I don't like the way that the A is looking, so I'm going to use the Pathfinder tool to fill it in. Okay, cool. So if you're happy with the way it looks, you can just go and move the hop word up. And then the next step in this process is to take the square shape, ungroup it from the O, and duplicate it so it's on the sides. And just a quick note, if you see me just dragging my mouse across, it's a little helpful tip if you don't know it. You can push Alt when dragging something to duplicate it easily. Alright, so I'm happy with the way that's looking. The next step in the process is using the blend tool. If you're not sure what the blend tool is, it's a tool that you can use to create patterns or gradients. So what I'm doing here is just creating two separate rectangular shapes, both of different heights. The top one is 0.4 millimeters and the bottom one I'm going to make 0.8. Okay, so now that we have the two objects, we can go to blend options, make it specified steps, and I think I'm going to go with 25 steps. That will work perfectly for me. You're welcome to play around with what you want and see what works best. If you're happy with the way that the blend looks, you're welcome to start changing the color. As you can see, I've put a block down there with the color. I will be putting the hex code on the screen for you. Now the next step that we're going to do is what is called creating a compound path. So first what I think I'm going to do is change the color to the blue and make it a stroke. And then you will go and push Control 8 or Command 8 if you're on Apple. You can also go to Object and create compound path there in there. So what we're going to do is we can take our copied shape, go into the Draw Inside tool, and copy paste into place. Once you're happy with that, you can go and repeat the process with the jazz word. So change the color, make a a stroke out of it, and create a compound path to copy the shape into. Okay, now that we've pasted that inside, it's just a matter of moving it around to make sure it looks uniform to the other word. And then once you're happy with it, we can move on to the next step. Alright, so now that I'm happy with that, I'm just going to take a look at it from further away, see if I'm happy with the whole logo. No, not just yet. I think I'm going to move stuff around, but I'll speed up the video for you guys so you don't have to watch the whole process. Okay, so now that I'm happy with this logo, it's time to move on to the next step, which is creating the illustration for the label. You're welcome to use the same image as I used. This part is fairly simple for experienced users, so if you are comfortable with the pencil, feel free to skip forward to the mockup section. Since this was a personal project, I used an image I found on Google. But if you're planning on creating a work that you wish to publish, please remember to use an image that you have the rights to. It's important to keep that in mind when doing work that you're going to publish, because you can get into serious trouble if you don't. That's not to say that you can't just use any images that you find, but you must always make sure that they are the correct usage rights. And you can do this on Google, or you can also find lots of free websites that you can get images from. For example, there's a website called Unsplash. If you'd like, you can also try and find an image similar to this if you're trying to publish a work. So, now that I'm done lecturing you guys on usage rights, I just wanted to point out that this image is a very dark image, and I did this on purpose because I wanted to use the highlights of an image in order to create the shape. This will allow us to create an image using negative space, which is always a great way to create an appealing image that catches an eye. So let's get started with the pen tool by selecting, or rather drawing, our first highlight. If you aren't familiar with the pen tool, it's a fairly simple tool, but it can take a while to get used to, especially when you're trying to draw complex shapes such as these. Now a little tip I'd like to show you, I'm showing you on screen here. I'm sure you've noticed that I'm pulling the anchor of the pen tool. This can be done by pressing Alt, and it allows you to change the direction of the pen tool so that you can move in different angles without having to worry about the curves. Okay, so once we're done with this shape, we're going to move on to the next. That is not. Now, once we finish off this shape, as you can see, I'm using the Alt there quite a lot. So once we finish off this one, we can go on to the next. Now it's just a matter of selecting all these other highlights. But don't worry too much about following the shape exactly, because once the image is gone, you won't be able to tell that you've gone out of line. Now you'll notice here that I'm just going to change it to a stroke, maybe make it a little bit thinner. This just helps you to select the shape without worrying or without the color getting in the way. I'd like you to try this all out on your own. I am going to start speeding up the video because this takes a little while, and I'll see you just now. Okay, cool, and we're back. I hope yours went as well as mine did. If there are any shapes that you aren't happy with, you're welcome to use the curvature tool, which you can use, and you can select any point that you've created and move it while still maintaining a nice curve. Once you're happy with it, you can go and change up the color of the sleeve and shirt. Just select them individually and make them white. And then I'm just going to move over to my other file just so I can grab the colors. So I'll just grab the orange quickly for the background. Alright, so I'm just going to move this orange shape into the right position. And then what I'm going to do is copy paste that into a background layer so that I don't have to worry about selecting it when I'm trying to move other shapes. So now you're just going to copy paste into place. And there you go. Now we remove the background image and you can see we've got our shape nicely on there. I'm just going to grab the yellow that I used quickly. Just going to use the eyedropper tool. And now we're just going to select all of the shapes. I can do this so much quicker. Just deselect the white shapes by holding shift. And now you can use the eyedropper tool and select the yellow. And there you have it. That is the illustration. Obviously you can still go and fix a couple things. I see now that I've by mistake made the strings. Don't actually know what I've done. No worries though, I'll just fix them quick. Okay, cool. And now we can just move our little guy around quick until we're happy with his positioning and scale. I'm probably gonna have to move him around again, but let me just show the jazz hop layer. And there you go. Let me just shift him a bit again. And so I'm happy with that. And then let's just make sure everything's centered. Okay, so once we're happy with that, we can move on to the final touches. First, we're going to do the name of the beer, which I've called the Double Hopper IPA. So now you just need to figure out your typeface, which of course we're still using Epitaph, and figure out which letters look better. Once you're happy with it, the way it looks, you can start shifting a few more things around just to make sure everything's nicely proportioned and scaled. And then you can change this to white quickly, and we will put the established as well as alcohol percentage because those are always on labels. So just finish up typing there, and then we can scale them down and position them until we're happy. And that is the last little step of the label. Great, so now that we're happy with that, we can export it as a PNG. So I'm just moving a couple things around quickly, and then the next step is to create our mockup, which will be on screen now. So I used Photoshop and I got the template from Adobe stock. For those that are wondering, there are a lot of places that you can get. Adobe stock is paid and it isn't exactly cheap, but there are tons of free websites where you can find templates and mockups for the products that you'd like. Okay, so let's jump straight in. This is a fairly simple process in which you select the smart object, as you saw there. I clicked on it, and you will copy paste your illustration into it, illustration or graphic rather. And then you will just paste it in or drag it into the window and scale it. Don't press shift, otherwise it makes it warp, as you can see. And you say okay, you save that, you close this window, and bang, there you are. You have your final product. I also did create a neck label, but I didn't put that into this tutorial. But if you'd like to know how to do that, it's also fairly simple. As you can see, it's pretty easy design, and then you just pop it into the neck label, smart object. Okay guys, that's it for my tutorial on how to create the Jazz Hop branding. I covered a few little tricks today in this video, so I hope that you enjoyed it and found it informative. If you like this video, click the like button, if not, the dislike button. I'll be creating more videos like this in the future, so feel free to subscribe and comment on what kind of tutorials you'd like to see next. From me and the Melt team, we'd like to thank you for watching and hope to see you soon.